The Blade itself is like if Quentin Tarantino had written and directed The Fellowship of the Ring. This is a story of a fellowship coming together, but the fellowship in this case is made up of terrible people, and that's what makes this amazing. There's also plenty of well-described violence. The Blade itself takes a bunch of common fantasy tropes and flips them on their head. We have a wise old wizard, but he's buff and doesn't wear a cloak or a cape, or at least not often, and is probably a hipster. He was into magic before it was cool. It also features a barbarian from the north who's surprisingly thoughtful about pretty much everything he runs into. We also follow a man of nobility who's preparing for a fencing match, and he's pretty arrogant and possibly a sucker for love. Then we have a crippled war hero who is now an inquisitor, and he basically just tortures people and gets the answers he wants to hear. Then we have another character who pops up briefly and is basically a feral cat just trying to kill all the stuff. Now, the setting is probably the only thing typical in this book, which is your typical fantasy setting, being that it's basically medieval, European, swords and sorcery, that sort of thing. Now, who's this for? If you're looking for entry-level grimdark, this is a good place to start. If you're a fan of fantasy in general, you'll love how they flip these common tropes on their head. Now, if you're already a fan of grimdark, and you're looking for, like, the most bloody, violent, dark, terrible book you can find, this is not it. I would suggest Norleska Groans by Michael Fletcher and Clayton Snyder. This is pretty light on the scale of grimdark books, which is why I think it's a good place if you're just entering into that subgenre. But if you gravitate towards grimdark just because you don't like cookie-cutter heroes who won't kill or do terrible things to get the job done, then you'll enjoy this. These characters will do whatever it takes to accomplish their goals. Even if you're not big on fantasy, you'll probably still enjoy this just because the characters are so well described and entertaining. Even minor characters feel so distinct and real. If this were a movie, you could probably get A-listers to play minor characters just because each and every character in the story has the potential to take over a scene. I mean, there's a character named Hoff, who's like a very minor character, but I can imagine like J.K. Simmons or somebody like that playing him, which would be hilarious. Each character's flaws, tendencies, mannerisms, catchphrases are all so well defined. Yes, catchphrases. Even to this day, at least once a week, I say the phrase, "We have to be reasonable about these things." And then I smile, and the person I'm speaking with will be like, "Oh, okay," and they don't get the reference. Which is why it's important that you make friends with other fans of adult fantasy, because they get the reference. The comedic elements in this story deserve praise. It's so well blended in. Jokes don't ruin anything in this one. The comedy is so well ingrained in character development that it just works. One character waxes poetically about his hatred of stairs, while another one will rant on and on about the beauty of his jawline. And another character has this item, and it's not even a funny item, but he has a relationship with this item, and he feels very strongly about it, and it's hilarious. To know that this was Joe Abercrombie's first novel is amazing, and just wow. It's surprising because it's so well written. Writers tend to get better over time. Like the more books they release, they usually get, a little better. But if this is his starting point, I need to read the rest of his stuff. Abercrombie has created a story where every character is so distinct and unique and entertaining in their own way. This is a story that flips fantasy tropes on its head, then swirls in some comedy for good measure. This is a 5-star read. Absolutely. Now, have you read it? Let me know what you thought down in the comments below, and we'll talk about it. Until next time, later.